The Eyes of Texas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week's edition of The Eyes of Texas. I'm Ron Stone, and each week we try to look at some aspect of Texas heritage or character. Our Eyes of Texas cameras have been out this week looking at the sunrise at Port Aransas, to Castroville to sample the menu at an Alsatian restaurant, to Ford County to see a remarkable museum, and to a spot near the coast that calls itself Heaven on Earth. We begin our program in San Augustine County, the safest county in the state when you look at the crime statistics. And a lot of the reason for that is the subject of our first story, Nathan Tindall, the one-of-a-kind sheriff of San Augustine. It is early morning in San Augustine, and the man who's been sheriff here for almost 40 years is busy earning his pay, $853 a month to take home. But Nathan Tindall may be the richest sheriff in Texas. He owns 55 acres of land inside the city limits, owns about a dozen trucks, has a piece of the bank in nearby Sharina, is the sole proprietor of a sawmill on the outskirts of San Augustine that happens to be the largest employer in the territory. And by the way, many of the workers at the mill are people Nathan sent to jail. He hires them because he says everybody deserves a second chance.
I always had a feeling for the underdog. I think that a man is more he's down, the more help he needs. You know, when you're up on top, you don't need no help. Everybody's with you when you're on top, but when you get down, and you know, people is, there's good people that don't know how to handle their affairs, and they need somebody to guide them.
If you haven't figured out by now, Nathan Tindall is a very unorthodox sheriff.
Is JB in? Who is it? Lucille, this is Tindall down at the sheriff's office. Okay. When he gets out, we'll tell him to come by here and see me. I got these little old checks, and I don't want to file on him and him in the hospital until he gets out and has a chance to take care of him.
He calls people on the telephone before they get in serious trouble writing bad checks. If they can make them good before the court date, Nathan can save them a little money in court costs.
Okay.
And Nathan probably wins another vote next election time.
All right. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Sometimes when Nathan catches a burglar, he just might send him out with instructions to get the stolen property back.
A lot of times when officers go to a place, it scares them and they won't let them have it back, or they'll let them have it back if we're not there. So I just send the one that stole it back and gather it up.
Sheriff Tindall does a lot of investigating on his job. He handles criminal investigations for the city and the county, but he does very little chasing. When he wants to talk to somebody, he just calls them on the phone.
Every morning I got 7, 8, 10 waiting when I come to work that I've sent word that night or told their daddies or mamas something, tell them to be here the next morning at 10.
They actually just come in and
99% of them come in.
He was the youngest sheriff in Texas when he first won the job and was already a prosperous young man by then. A few years of making $300 a month burned him out, so he went back to private business for one term. Second time he accepted the sheriff's job, the county fathers understood that Nathan needed to keep some of his outside interests in order to make a living. And that's the way it's worked all these years. He spends 16 hours a day at his county job, either in the office or on patrol. And this county sheriff does not carry a gun.
I probably think less of guns than anybody, and probably know less about guns than anybody. I don't feel comfortable walking around with a big pistol on. Hey, they had a shooting right there. It's been a while, a few months ago. And I could hear guns firing. It just sounded like a movie. You know, it was just like an outside gun show. And so the chief police was waving for me to get down, and I said, what's the problem? And he said, that man up yonder behind that car is shooting. And I said, well, who's up there? And they said it was a boy by the name of O.D. Davis. I said, y'all just stop the shooting. So I just got out of my car and walked up the road, walked around where he had the shotgun, took the shotgun out of his hand. He handed it to me and told him to bring my car up, put him in the car, and carried him to jail.
He's a businessman, he's a banker, he's a landowner, he's a developer, but being sheriff of San Augustine County is what makes Nathan Tindall tick. It's the most important job he's had, and he hopes to keep it for a long time.
Every what I do, I put a whole lot in it, and I just, you know, anything anybody can do, I feel like I can just do a little, maybe not no better, but I can do a little more of it. And I know they can get somebody down there to fill my space, but they ain't gonna get nobody down there easy to take my place.
How do you put a city on the map? In Lufkin, Texas, they raise a whole lot of hoopla over hush puppies.
This is the Southern Hushpuppy Olympics is what it's called.
And it was the only food that wasn't taken by some other town's festival.
If you envisioned a dog show when you heard Hushpuppy Olympics, then you're barking up the wrong tree.
Well, the Hushpuppy is made of, I guess, mainly just cornmeal fried, and people put different ingredients in it to come up with different flavors.
Fajita meat, the main ingredient. Jalapeno peppers, salt, pepper, baking powder, lime,
onions and cheese and things like that, you know, palpo.
This dog-eat-dog competition for a $1,000 grand prize is part of Lufkin's annual Forest Festival, saluting the timber industry. It's held appropriately during the dog days of summer. And for 14 years now, the whole city's gone silly over fried bits of cornmeal. And these started out as scraps thrown to hush the hounds.
Cooks would put together a little bit of cornbread and throw it out the door to quieten the dogs, and they'd holler, "Hush puppy."
Sure, hush puppies will pacify a pup. Certainly they satisfy the spectators. But no matter how doggedly one works, it's the judges you need to leash. They're dogmatically pursuing the best.
Taste, appearance, and uniqueness. I never realized how different 64 hush puppies could be from each other.
If the judges don't seem dog-tired of hush puppies, perhaps it's because not only are the participants armed with cornmeal, these dogs of war are also raising the banner, shouldering the makeshift musket. In short, these showmen are putting on the dog.
I mean, it's a regular zoo out here, you know. We thought that we would never see
That's the little Hushpuppy.
hush puppies cooked by a pine tree. I have hair puppies. Hush puppies cooked so golden brown. How much? Not too much, not too much. They turn your frown upside down.
But they say hush puppies cooked by canines or pine trees haven't a dog's chance at the grand prize. Last year's winners and this year's favorites are Jim Alexander and David McNeese. They sport not costumes but sunshades and a special tasting technique.
I got a pretty lazy dog, a pretty lazy Cocker Spaniel. And if she'll stand up for a hush puppy, it's a good one. It's got to be. And so this is the recipe she stood up for last night and begged for.
Another top dog in the competition is O.O. Shotgun Wright from Dallas. One of his trademarks is a letter-shaped hush puppy.
I'll tell you what, I put a $100 bill on each hush puppy, see, for each judge.
You've got your initials, pick your letters.
This is the showstopper.
We worked 2 years on it. We kill 15 dogs, I bet you, feed them hush puppies. And I don't know how many cats.
While the top contenders are being judged, it should be explained that the people of Lufkin don't believe they've gone to the dogs. They say northerners are the ones left out in the cold.
If they ever get hold of a Hushpuppy, well, they'll throw those bagels and things away.
I don't think people in West Texas know what a hush puppy is.
Well, there's nothing better than being down on the river, being down on the lake, you know, eating a little catfish, cooking some hush puppies up with your catfish. There's nothing quite like it, really.
As the pages of this year's Olympics become dog-eared and worn, we're nearing the last chapter, and it's time for the trophy.
This makes number 3. Oh,
And Shotgun wins with an easy formula.
I cooked the best hush puppies in the world to win.
Or rather, Shotgun, you cook the best hush puppies in the South. Remember, up north, they probably think we're having a dog show.
They don't know what they're missing.
Steam locomotives still engage the affections of a lot of people, and many people still around remember the sounds those old engines made, and one fellow we know is making sure the sounds are not forgotten.
L.W. Jones learned how to imitate old train whistles when he was growing up in East Texas. He worked in a logging camp, and it all began as a joke about one of the other workers in that camp.
Sam Dyson could blow a whistle. I'm telling you, he could really blow one. And he drank a little whiskey. And when he started the town, Pineland, he, I guess, took a drink. I didn't see him, but he'd blow his whistle the best. And he'd start, but as he come down that hill, before he got to the creek, about even with us, he'd blow that highball. And we got to marking him.
If you went around San Augustine asking for Latham Jones, you would not be likely to find him. Here, he is known as Casey Jones. Casey grew up around Hemphill. He came from a poor family, and until he left there, he says he was bored most of his life.
How bored was he?
He was so bored that he went through the 11th grade twice because he says he didn't have anything else to do.
Did you ever hear a train whistle?
Casey has plenty to do now. He's the town character. Even in retirement, he's in demand. On the courthouse square with members of his fan club.
Do that.
Or in the San Augustine drugstore where he worked for 52 years. Casey was a pharmacist before it took a license to be one. He gave out medicine to heal aches and pains, and he says he even did a little doctoring when the local doctor was drunk.
I helped a lot of people. They'd come in there sick, you know, and they'd say, well, I don't have no money to see a doctor. Can't you fix me some medicine? I said, yeah, I sure can. And I don't know why, but they'd come back and say, and that's the best medicine I ever taken in my life.
Casey never became a tycoon, but he did all right. He raised a son and saw him become a doctor. Casey bought half interest in the drugstore and even developed a fountain drink of his own. It's called a grapefruit highball, and they still sell about 30 gallons of Casey's drink here in an average week. He won't reveal the ingredients of his drink to anyone except the owner of the store today. Casey and his wife still stop by the San Augustine Drug almost every day. But entertaining children is what Casey does best. And after 70 years, he is still about the biggest celebrity in San Augustine.
Who is that?
Dida.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Who is that?
Dida.
Yeah. I think they're part of my children, you know, and I just love them. It does you good to know that somebody likes you, you know. They just really little angels. He don't know, does he? You try. Yeah, you try. How about you? Yes, you can. See that? Yeah.
In the piney woods near the East Texas town of Jasper, Peggy and her research assistant, Katie Morosky, are trying to find a roost of the elusive big-eared bat.
It's important to find a roost because that is where a higher concentration of bats are found, and it's easier to protect an area where they consistently can be found in large numbers rather than finding them dispersed throughout a forest.
In the woods, the researchers set thin mist nets across a path. The idea is to catch a bat and then follow it home. They plan to attach a tiny radio transmitter to the captured bat, release it, and then track it back to its roost.
Go in, very good. And we'll just come by just before dusk. There's a bat.
The researchers carefully remove the big-eared bat from the net and begin a thorough examination.
We're going to take its weight and its forearm length. The bones of a bat's wings are similar to the bones of a human's arms and hands, and that is what the bat is using to fly with, is really its hand, not its arms.
They're very closely related to human beings, and they're the only mammal that flies. The first time you ever see a bat, you're very surprised by what they actually look like, how cute they are and how unique they are, how small they are. They're very delicate.
They now attach the tiny radio transmitter to the small bat's back. The glue used is a temporary adhesive that breaks down after a few days. It will cause no permanent harm to the animal. The transmitter secured, they are ready to release the bat and follow it back to its roost.
Okay, we'll just hang him on the tree and let him leave on his own accord when he's comfortable. He may not stay long. There he goes. Bat has swung around us and is leaving down the trail. I think we've lost the signal now. Since it's getting a little late, why don't we go ahead and just wait until tomorrow and see if we can find its roost. Nothing over the water?
At dawn, with antenna, radio receivers, and members of the U.S. Forest Service, Peggy and Katie head out to try and locate the big-eared bat and his roost.
When we're doing radio telemetry, it's very exhilarating because you might be finding a roost that has never been seen before, and we might be discovering some new things about the bats that we don't know about. How strong a signal is it?
Pretty faint, but it's definitely this direction.
Well, let's go off down this trail.
Finally, the signal leads them to an old sawmill. The site has been abandoned for over 65 years.
You still picking up the signal?
Yes.
There's some right there. There's about 6 of them.
It's fairly protected, and they have a large area where they have the several different rooms that they can go to, and it looks like we might have the start of a good stable colony which may be around for years to come.
The researchers will map this small big-eared bat roost and continue to check on it to make sure it remains safe.
By learning where bats live, we can further protect their habitat and maybe even make habitat for them. So it's fascinating to try to tease apart the mysteries of the bat so that we can prevent the further decline of it.
These commercial forests are worth $8 billion. Almost 10% of all the nation's wood products come from here. But the heat wave is threatening the area, causing the most dangerous fire conditions on record. This wildfire burned right up to the timberline yesterday, but firefighters managed to stop it just in time. Over the July 4th weekend alone, 57 wildfires destroyed 800 acres. The heat and drought alone are killing off the young seedling pines. Planted just last winter, they are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to the timber companies. But the young pines can be replaced. The old pines cannot, and if fire gets to them, the timber companies stand to lose millions and millions of dollars.
Actually, this summer has probably been the hottest summer that we've had since I've been with Forest Service, and our conditions right now, we're in a fire situation.
Wells coordinates firefighting operations from Forest Service Regional Headquarters in Lufkin. He says the only reason the woods are not going up in smoke right now is because of low winds, high humidity, and these men. They are not firefighters, but their job is just as critical, to find the wildfires before they become too wild.
Federal, Sugar One's 10-8-1300. Pilot's name is Reese. Altitude will be 3,000. Visibility 25, TX21, Sugar One clear.
It takes a number of planes to keep watch on the 24 million acres of timberland in East Texas. The spotters check out every sign of smoke and radio the information to Forest Service headquarters. So far, detecting the fires early has saved the woodlands and the wildlife. But without rain soon, officials say this will turn out to be the worst year ever for forest fires in East Texas. David Bowles, Big 2 News.
This is a wild place by some standards, this Texas. We carry a reputation of being gunslingers, for one thing. And in San Augustine, there was one shootout that Bill Springer says makes the gunfight at the OK Corral look like Ned and the First Reader.
San Augustine is an old town, a quiet town today. It was not quiet in the closing days of the 19th century and the opening ones of the 20th. It was almost a battleground.
From the day I got here, I heard it. And when Kirk Borders was sheriff here and they had to take him out, why, there's several people guarded our house. Different ones laid there all night with their guns. And Mother took us down in the field in the cotton house and stayed down there on account of him threatening to kill us. They've always said San Augustine is rowdy, but I think all of East Texas was rowdy. It was all one big community.
Knight Parker was born the year the Wall-Broocks border feud began, 1899. He knew all about it by the time he was old enough to go to school.
This is Sam Malone. I was looking for Knight Parker. Y'all come in the next few minutes and he's there. Give me a call, will you? Sam Malone.
Sam Malone's a printer, publisher, and historian. His offices are just up the street from the store that Knight Parker has had since 1920.
Sure, boy. Parker, tell me, the courthouse right here on the corner, the courthouse was 60 feet in front of that commercial bank and 60 feet from this. And the old jail was down, the old metal jail was down here on the old jail was down here, but the new jail was there.
San Augustine has seen its share of tough times. Knight recalls having to protect his store with men and shotguns. But he and Sam agree the worst feud San Augustine ever had pitted the Walls and their relatives and friends against the Borders and Brooks and their relatives and friends.
Now, there's a blacksmith shop yonder where that bank building is, and that's where a dozen killings took place.
Back there?
Right there.
Oh, I'll be back.
The Walters were, they were northern people, and the Brookses and the Border were southerners. And the children fell out of school and had fights and scratches from the time they were little boys on up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what originally started.
Then they got into some politics.
And then they got into politics.
Uncle Buck Wall was elected to the San Augustine County Commissioner's Court. His son George was elected sheriff at the same time. Sheriff Wall arrested one Kirk Border for being drunk and disorderly.
Border declared he would one day get even with the sheriff. That day was not long in the future, for one day soon afterward, as Sheriff Wall turned a corner in the town of San Augustine, he was shot and instantly killed by Kirk Border. And that set it off.
Killed. He was shot in the back of this building right here.
Right where we're sitting.
And they carried him over here to the college building, and that's where he died.
Kirk Border was not arrested for killing the sheriff. He left town.
He was what you'd call a first-class coward.
There were reports that one of Border's relatives, Ben Brooks, said Kirk had done the right thing, killing Wall. Word got back to George's brother Eugene, and Eugene Wall killed Ben Brooks.
That happened yonder in Will Wade, in the Wade Boys Furniture Store.
Now that was right here within a block of where we're sitting.
Just a block of where we're sitting.
Eugene was arrested and tried in Cherokee County. He was found not guilty, but not long after the trial he was ambushed and killed. His brother Lopez had been ambushed and killed while the trial was going on. No one was arrested in either case. Meanwhile, San Augustine County had a new sheriff.
Noah Robert was appointed sheriff to take his uncle's place.
That's right.
And he was 21 years old.
Youngest sheriff in Texas at the
youngest one in Texas.
Sheriff Robert's brother Sidney and his uncle Felix were killed as they tried to enter the courthouse. The sheriff was badly wounded.
A barrage of shots from right where we're sitting.
Right here.
Texas Rangers and the Stone Fort Rifles of Nacogdoches were called in to quiet things down, but the killing was not over. Kirk Border came back to San Augustine and was elected sheriff. However, the county commissioners removed him from office. Knight Parker's father and grandfather were county commissioners at the time. Border reportedly swore to get the man who replaced him. That man was Sneed Noble, and that time was Kirk Border's time.
Sneed Noble shot him off a horse right here in front of the Houston Hotel about 2:30 one evening.
Henry Fuller, in his little book, A Texas Sheriff, says Border died with his boots on and a gun in his hand.
With the death of Kirk Border and the awful strife that had rent Sabine and San Augustine counties ceased,
Uncle Buck Wall and his wife moved to Oklahoma to escape further trouble. By 1902, it was over. Their 3 sons who had died in the feud are buried at the McMahon Chapel Cemetery in Sabine County, east of San Augustine.
And the nightmare of the past has long since ceased to disturb the dreams of the good people in that goodly land.
Hello, I'm Billy House and your outdoorsman. Today we're on Toledo Bend. I know you heard about all the pretty spots. Today we're gonna go around and look at some of them. Come go with us. We're coming into the generating and power plant area of the lake, and all these boats you're gonna see in just a second are folks that are out here after stripers. This is real striper territory. Toledo Bend, this area where they generate down here, is probably one of the better striper areas in the whole state of Texas. There's real big ones down here, some of them over 30 pounds, and some of the people suspect there's some 40-pounders or better ones right down there around that area where the generators are generating. It's really a whole lot better when they got the gates open. They usually close them on a weekend. I don't know what their reason is, but they got a reason. Sailboating is real popular in the open areas too. Now we're going to go over to this Texas island. This is a real popular fishing place for a lot of folks in the springtime. People fish around that island and get out of the wind on one side or the other of it when it's windy. That makes it real good. Also have an island like this on the Louisiana side. Looks just about like it. Real good fishing in these areas. Yeah, waterfall is what I was talking about being unique. Not big by waterfall standards, but it is a waterfall. It is in East Texas, and it does run into the Toledo Bend Reservoir. Yeah, those are some of the things on the south end of Toledo Bend I thought you'd like to see. A whole lot of fun, and maybe you'd like to go do it yourself.
You ever wonder what happens to old TV anchormen? Well, believe me, it's something I think about more and more these days. But there is hope that I can keep working forever, I guess. A case in point, up in East Texas, I want you to meet Sam Malone and Ventilator.
And not only did Mayor Getz say that he appreciated the gift, but he's sure that the fire department did too, because he said, we believe we have the best volunteer fire department in the state of Texas. Well, that was quite nice.
San Augustine's an historic town located on the El Camino Real, the old King's Highway that ran from Louisiana through places like Nacogdoches and San Antonio all the way to Mexico City. A lot of the town's appeal can be traced to its past. But San Augustine has a modern side too, complete with radio and cable TV newscasts by Sam Malone.
Good morning, Sam. Well, good morning, Squirrel, and hello, everyone, from San Augustine. Oh, we got a pretty girl in the studio for company today. Christy Mills, how many times have you been on this program with me now?
This is my third year.
Third year. Boy, Heidi, I'm catching them coming back.
Sam was born and raised in Abilene. Family moved to Seminole in 1938, where Sam's parents had bought the newspaper. Sam was honored in 1988 by the Texas Press Association for his 50 years in the newspaper business. He and his wife came to San Augustine in 1967 and organized and ran the Rambler newspaper till they sold it in 1981.
I thought I would semi-retire in the publishing business, and doggone if it doesn't seem like that I've really have been more active since retiring than I was before. We would like to salute all 4-H Club youngsters, not only here in San Augustine, but in our neighboring counties that are listening to us on the radio.
Sam still writes a column for the newspaper. He's a member of the Texas Outdoor Writers Association. He especially likes to write and talk about Texas history.
Christy Mills, we salute you. I salute you this day and hope that you have a wonderful 4-H Club week, and I'll see you Saturday night.
Thank you.
Fine. Thank you for coming.
Sam's been doing his broadcast 6 days a week for 21 years. That works out, he says, to 4,600 minutes a year on the air. But in the past year, Sam's had a real lesson in humility. He may not be the star of the show anymore, not since Ventilator walked into his life.
We were at home, and the air conditioner was running, and I heard a meow, 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 and I looked in the air conditioner vent, which it sounded like where the sound was coming from, and doggone my cat, if it wasn't this cat, a little bitty kitten. And oh, he did want some groceries in the worst way, and he just moved in and took over. Well, we had a home cat, so we just brought Ventilator down here and made him an office cat. Now, a revival has also been scheduled for Monday through Wednesday. The Reverend Robert Falk, who's a former pastor of the church, will be the evangelist. Oh boy, let's pause here now for this message from First National Bank.
Ventilator is only a year old, so Sam can look forward to his company for quite a while. Of course, Ventilator, being a cat, could decide to walk away from it all anytime and just chuck show business for good. Until then, Sam's content being your friendly San Augustine neighborhood co-anchor. Good night, neighbors.
It promises to be another beautiful day in historic San Augustine. A pleasure to be with you today. That's our time. Thank you for yours.
In a rural East Texas community, girls were enrolled in the regular vocational ag classes during the 1975-76 school year for the first time. These girls are discussing their participations in a high school program.
Would be hesitant to develop the course the same way they would if it were an all-boys class. Do you think this is going to be just temporary? I mean, with our society getting more open, people franker about the basic facts of life.
The prof told us when we first got in ag, our first day out there, he told us that, it was going to be, he was going to treat us just like he would his other ag classes, his boy ag classes, He told us that we would do everything they did, that maybe some of the stronger jobs of fooling with the cows a bit, that he said we would do it, but it would probably require a lot more of us to do it, but that we would have, we would do it, give shots, and stuff like this.
Hey, Bro, what do you think about girls and just ag classes, like ag classes at school?
I think it's fine. I really do. I think that the girls should know how to do things, because we never know when we are going to have to do things, are called on to do things. And had I not known, had I not worked with cattle all these years, well, it would have been harder on me if I hadn't been acquainted with it. And when my husband passed away, well, I just went right ahead with it. I kept my cattle and been raising them ever since.
You still have your cattle now?
Still have my cattle, raise cattle and calves.
There's lots of things that, you learn from, like we learned how to build things, you learn how to weld and stuff like that. And like if you choose not to go to college, I'm sure you could always find a welding job, people say women welding, but it's money. And if you can do it good and if you're good at it, I don't think people should look down on you or what sex or race or anything else you are,
East Texas. It's not the landscape of vast spaces or cowboys. It's 850 miles east of El Paso, a different culture, a different land. It's the South, not the West. It was to East Texas that thousands of Southerners came after the Civil War, whites and blacks seeking to carve a new beginning out of these piney woods, to fish, hunt, fell timber, to raise corn and cotton. It was largely here that 22,000 blacks succeeded in realizing a Texas dream, owning their own land.
We come this morning, our Father, with thanksgiving in our heart.
This is one of those families, a large, extended family, the Upshaws of Nacogdoches County.
Help them so they may become a child of yours.
And this church is as much a part of their lives as the lumber and grist mills and cotton gin were in days gone by.
Well done.
Any Upshaw is the patriarch of the clan that descended from 3 brothers, freed slaves who walked nearly all the way here from Tennessee. The beginnings of the Upshaw community. Their descendants are scattered, but they return here to remember their land, their family, their past.
When the old wagons like this stopped rolling down the El Camino Real, an awful lot of history remained. Along the King's Highway, there is no more historic place than San Augustine. And that's where you'll find the Ezekiel Cullen home. San Augustine calls itself the cradle of Texas. On the eastern end of El Camino Real, it is the site of many firsts in this state's history. And on a quiet neighborhood street in town is one of San Augustine's treasures, the Ezekiel Cullen home, built in 1839. Ezekiel's grandson, Hugh Roy, is the most famous member of the Cullen family. A multimillionaire, Hugh Roy Cullen provided endowments that built hospitals and encouraged the growth of the University of Houston. But Cullen's grandfather, the man who built this house, was a prominent Texan in the 19th century. Ezekiel was a lawyer and a judge who served in the Congress of the Republic of Texas. He authored the bill that set aside public lands for support of public education. And Cullen is still known as the father of the Texas public school system. Cullen's house was occupied until 1953. In that year, Hugh Roy gave the house to the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. And today, the Cullen home doubles as a museum and as a setting for parties and receptions. There's even a wedding here on occasion. And each April, the house serves as the headquarters for St. Augustine's annual tour of homes and historic places. This link to the past does not sit as an idle relic. The Cullen house is still a home for all of St. Augustine to enjoy. The Cullen home is open 6 days a week, and it's in St. Augustine. St. Augustine is about 35 miles to the east of Nacogdoches. Nacogdoches, of course, is on Highway 21, El Camino Real, the King's Highway. That's this week's edition of the Eyes of Texas. I'm Ron Stone. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you have a very good week.